very likable guy. You know, at the beginning, here's a guy that doing something in the business that actually changed everything about our business as we talk today. Going coast to coast with TV, running roughshod over all the other promoters' TV. You know, I'm sure you understood that everybody that had their territory from the Von Erichs to Texas to Bill Watts out there, in the Crockett Carolinas, Eddie Graham down in Florida, Vern up in Minnesota. That everybody, I don't think anything was written down on paper. It was just a word and a handshake that you keep your TV in your territory, I keep mine in mine. That way, when we exchange talent, I got a new guy that's come in that nobody's seen, but he's a good worker, And Vince just decided to the heck with all that and just go coast to coast TV, which is.
Do you think it was smart, or do you think it was against the code of ethics?
Well, Rob, you got to understand that guys like Flair and Savage, Tully Blanchard, Dick Slater, we all came around that time to where we were all taught from the old timers, the Vern Gagnes, the Bruno Sammartinos, the Eddie Grahams, all those guys that paid their dues and taught us the work ethic as we understood it. Have respect for your main event. Hey, even to this day, but I know my first year of the business, I was a yes or no sir guy. I talked to some old timer, and I didn't care if he was, had passed his prime and he was doing the opening match in the card. But if, his reputation speaks for itself and what he had done while he's in the business. Maybe he was a main eventer for 25 years, and now he's just hanging on. But I was a yes or no sir type of guy. But Vince was I think at that time he was a very likable guy, and I think that was a natural persona about Vince at that time, trying to fit in, okay, taking a big step in the business, making history, doing a lot of changes, trying to get the right talent, and then everybody sees Vince as we see him today. It's a totally different man, totally different. Egos come into the factor, power and strength will always play a factor on your attitude, He says, well, especially just buying out WCW. He says, hey, I'm the man now.
Right. Were any of the WWF wrestlers intimidated by your work ethic when you first entered?
Once again, Rob, that question was like earlier.
Right.
Because I like to go put in time. Just off the wall, nobody come up to me directly and say, Steamboat, damn it, you got to go from 40 minutes a night and cut it back to maybe 20, Because if my match follows you, that means I got to sit in the locker room for another 20 minutes. Nobody really ever said that to me. Although you could sort of feel it around you. You can, you have that uncanny, you can feel it, every now and then. But no, I think when I first went to WWF, my first real angle was with Don Muraco.
That was my next question, actually.
Yeah, Don Muraco and Mr. Fuji. No. And Muraco, God, he was 280. I remember him in Florida as a babyface. He's about 6'2", 6'3", babyface in Florida, 228 pounds. God, he looked like a Polynesian god when he walked in. Tanned abs, big cap shoulders, handsome face, black hair, And then when he went up to the WWF there in the mid-'80s, and he's working heel with Mr. Fuji, and I said, God, sometime he got up to 300 pounds. Big guy. Work ethic, no. Muraco would be there, foaming at the mouth, drooling, trying to suck as much air as he could get, blow it up, but you couldn't stop him. He would be there. If it was time for my comeback and we've been going 30 minutes and it was time for him to bounce and bump, he would fly for you. I don't know how he did it. He looked like he was on the verge of dying, passing out, throwing up, having a miscarriage, all in the same time.
Right.
But the guy would be there. backdrop, hip toss, over the top rope. Come on, throw me over the top. Come off the top rope with a dive onto the floor with me. I'll be there. And I'm sitting there wondering, as I'm climbing the rope and I look down there on the floor and he's getting up, is he really going to be there? Because I'm looking at the guy that I've been working with for 30 minutes. Dude,
Right.
shit all over, running down his chest. Piece of throw up hanging off his side of his face.
Right.
You know, been out on an all night drunk the night before. You know, him and Fuji. You know, is he going to be there for me as I do this dive off the top rope down to the floor?
Right.
You know, the guy was there, and every single time he was there.
How would you compare Ric Flair and Randy Savage? You worked with both of them. You had great matches.
Yes. Okay. Let me recap that question real quick.
Okay.
The most asked question of all my matches is between the Randy Savage and Ric Flair match. Okay. Savage being in 87, Flair 89. And the reason why is that those got a lot of coverage because they were pay-per-view shows. There was a lot of build-up on them. And when I answer it this way, and I'm answering it this way to the camera, being very candid, this is an answer that I usually give when I'm with the boys. But, you know, hey, this is year 2001. The business is where it's at. There's been a lot of exposure. So this is my answer. Savage and mine, and the match that we had at WrestleMania 3, Savage was the kind of guy that was a very detailed worker. He would like everything lined up in your match. If you had locker room time at a house show, regular house show, you're working with Savage for the evening, he would spend as much time with you as he possibly could. And if he liked you, if he didn't like you, he would just go out there and have a match and take as much as he could take. But if he got along good with you and knew that you were, you know, on the same level playing field as him and trying to have collectively a great match, he would be there for you. But getting ready we did the angle, which he came off the top rope on my throat with the plywood and the announcer's bell.
Right.
And that was done, I think, in around December of '76. Of course, WrestleMania wasn't in until March of,
right.
I'm sorry, '86.
Right.
And so we had 3 or 4 months of TV to build up on it, which they don't have that luxury now. But we may talk about that later. So as we're going, we say, hey, we know we got this big match. This is WrestleMania 3. It's at the Silverdome. Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan are headlining it. You know, we were the main event right below that. And we both understood, you know, said, well, we know that Andre and Hogan are going to be the ones that selling the tickets. People are going to pay to see that. I mean, we've got some interest there. But let's understand the way Vince and Hogan and Andre collectively have put together the main event for this WrestleMania 3. And then, of course, we had some friendly mentions, Savage and Steamboat. And we did the angle on TV. Did a couple interviews afterwards, you know, like I couldn't talk. But let's say, you know, they sold the show. No giving back on that. It was Andre and Hogan. But I told Savage, I said, damn it, let's go out there and steal it. You know, they sold the show, we'll steal the show. I knew Andre had a bad back. He's hurting. They're not going to, 500-pound man's not going to bump. You know, it's going to be a relatively boring match. And I think it kind of ended up that way, which is the bear hug.
Right.
You know, especially after the fans got to see our match, which we were just right before that. But Savage, he was detailed, and he wanted everything lined up from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. I mean, step 1, believe it or not, Rob, was lockup. Now, you get a couple of old pros out there in the wrestling, why would you have to write step 1 as lockup? You know you would lock up, right? But that was Savage, very detailed. We got to, we're up to step 285, page after page. I had a spiral-bound notebook, you know, and the nights that we would be working against each other, we would always meet in one or the other's hotel room. Why? We would have our notebook. After we'd written out the whole match and all the steps, I would turn to page, 3, and I said, okay, I'm on step 197, and Randy, it's this, and this. Tell me the rest of the match. And he said, okay, step 198 is this, step 199 is this, what step 200 is this, you know, and on and then all the way through the match. And then the next night we would meet, if we were in the same town, booked in the same town. And he'd go, okay, Steamboat, I'm on step number 97. Tell me the rest of the match. And we would do this every single night or every time that we were in the same town. We had the match. I think the reason being is 16-minute match, almost like 20-some false finishes, 22, 21 false finishes. We had a false finish every 45 seconds, which was, you know, unusual. It was usually you'd have a babyface would shine, doing some babyface high spots. The heel would stop to get some heat, and then there would be the comeback, and you go home. Well, we had, from the get-go, we had just false finishes, and people then started getting into it. You know, after 8, 9, 10 false finishes.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Now, that just tells you the mechanics of that particular match, right? That's the way Savage liked to do it. Flair and I, 89, return match, I think, down in New Orleans, 2 out of 3 falls. We went 57 minutes. We went into that match knowing 3 things. The 3 falls. In a 57-minute match. The rest, we said, see you in the ring.
Wow.
We're going to wing it. We've been worked with each other, so we just see you in the match, see you in the ring. So there's the difference. You got a 16-minute match with 280-some steps. You got almost an hour match going and knowing 3 things. Which do you think is the more professional? Yeah, you get a couple old timers that can wing a match for an hour and just all they had to do, all they knew was going in was their 3 finishes. You know, and that's what. So obviously it was a Flair. For me, it was the Flair match. You know, because that's just showing what a couple of old pros can do. You know.
Right.
Didn't have, no, you want it now? Call it in the ring. You know, feel it out. We'll listen to the crowd. I said, all right, buddy. Just like the way we used to do it. Yep. You know, you remember some of those old spots? Yep. I said, all right. See you in the ring. That's it. 5-minute conversation. Get our 3 finishes down. That's it.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.